Good
Good afternoon.
afternoon,
We are Sam,
and Enzo.
two BA linguistics students from UP Diliman, here to present to you from Kirogi to Alaala, experiences in translating and subtitling an episode of the Korean drama series Extraordinary Attorney Woo into Filipino. Extraordinary Attorney Woo is a South Korean television series that aired in 2022. It follows the experiences of the titular protagonist as she navigates life as a lawyer with autism. The series aired in Korea on television network ENA and globally on streaming service Netflix. Netflix provided subtitles for the series in multiple languages, including English. The following details the experiences in translating the first episode of the series into Filipino, a language that Netflix's distribution of Extraordinary Attorney Woo had no available subtitles for. The experiences were informed and influenced by multiple factors, including Filipino subtitling still being an emerging field, attempting to bridge cultural gaps, and the drama's heavy utilization of legal jargon. Our approach and issues can be classified into subtitle timing, politeness and occupational titles, legal terminology, and wordplay. As for the title, as compared to the Korean word Isanghan or strange, which has a more negative connotation, Katangi-Tangi Attorney Woo was chosen as the title for the translated work. Katangi-Tangi, or standing out, was chosen to highlight the uniqueness of the main character and to put a more positive spin on the title. The same interpretation can be given to the English title using the word extraordinary. While most of the translation was done pivoting off of the English subtitles of the episode, the original Korean text was also used as basis of the translation when deemed more appropriate. This was possible as all the translators have some background in varying degrees in studying the Korean language. Through this trilingual approach, the translators attempted to provide the most accurate translation they could. The major restrictions imposed on subtitling have something to do with the possible length of lines relative to the time constraint. This makes brevity a significant aspect to take into consideration. The display time, or how long the subtitle can be seen on screen, is closely related to the average reading speed. In relation to this, the reading speed limit for adult programs, as stated by Netflix, is 17 characters per second, with a limit of 42 characters per line. Hence, as much as possible, an effort was made in order to pack everything in the short time frame available. However, not everything will fit, and some nuance will inevitably be lost. Thus, the right balance is needed as we cannot separate the physical aspect of reading from audio and video. Formal writing conventions are followed for subtitling, unless characterization dictates breaking it. When it comes to writing in Filipino, this gets difficult with speed limitations. Formal writing in Filipino is long, and words can turn into a mouthful, as the agglutinating morphology continuously changes to express aspect, focus, and other grammatical information. This can be seen in the following examples: nakakapagsalita and pinagsasabi. As illustrated, utterances that would normally consist of multiple words in English and are therefore more easily split in order to adhere to character and line limits are expressed in a single word in Filipino, driving the subtitlers to find solutions in order to maintain a comfortable reading speed. One thing that is shared between both Filipino and Korean language and culture is politeness. Both languages have ways in which a person may express politeness towards an elder or superior, a feature the English language and subtitles for the series lacks. In Filipino, this expression is typically manifested in the enclitic particles po and opo. Another way of expressing politeness in the language is to address another person using the plural form of the pronoun. For example, when talking to a person of higher age or status, a Filipino speaker would refrain from using the second person pronoun ikaw and would instead refer to the listener in the second person plural pronoun kayo. At times, the second person pronoun is even deferred to the third person plural pronoun sila to express even more politeness. Korean, on the other hand, expresses both politeness and formality through its verb endings. Social hierarchy is very important in Korean culture, and this is reflected in their work culture as well. In the drama, it can be observed that among work colleagues, chondemmal or polite language is used. Otherwise, outside the context of work and among friends, hanmal or casual language is used. Although this is observed to be less strict in Philippine culture, Filipino speakers also use polite language when talking to elders and superiors. The translators aimed to preserve the regard for hierarchy found in the original Korean, but at the same time also wanted to recontextualize these systems in the Filipino language. Thus, polite and formal language in Korean was retained and expressed to the following. Whenever mal or polite language was used, the Filipino translation contained the words po and opo. Ne or ye was always translated as opo. Instead of ikaw, kayo, or sila was used when addressing someone of higher status. In formal settings or when formal Korean is used, the Filipino translation is in formal language as well. This means adhering to formal inflection rules and avoiding the use of colloquial language. For example, reduplication of the first syllable of the root and not the reduplication of the first syllable of the affix, as in nakaririnig and not nakakarinig. Another example is the use of the formal conjunction ngunit instead of the colloquial pero. Titles are also given much regard. Lawyers are always referred to as Pyonosanim, and in court, prosecutors are referred to as Kongsanim, and judges are referred to as Chephanjangnim. Fortunately, these have English equivalents that are used in the Philippine legal system. In the Philippines, lawyers bear the title attorney before their names, prosecutors are called prosecutor, and judges are referred to as Your Honor. The translator's choices for translating Korean titles into Filipino are discussed further in the following section.
A significant challenge was faced when legal terminologies and language were translated from Korean to Filipino. Laws in Korea are written in Korean, and court proceedings are conducted in the same language. On the other hand, the Filipino legal system is primarily in English. Laws are written in English, and English is the language used in court. Legal terms are usually in English or at times Spanish. In some, legal language in Filipino is poorly developed and not nearly used as often as English in real life scenarios. In translating legal language from the original Korean of the material, the translators chose to make the subtitles localized and accessible. English legalese is two steps out of touch for the common Filipino, as A, not everyone is familiar with legal terms even among native English speakers, and B, English is still not spoken by everyone in the Philippines. To combat this gap, the translators thought of coining their own native translations. Since the target language is Filipino, the translators sought to limit foreign loans as much as possible and innovated translations for legal terms in Filipino. This was an attempt to strike a balance between how legal language is used in real life and making the subtitles consumable to the Filipino speaker regardless of a background in English or a law education. English terms that are used in the Philippine legal system were either retained in English, substituted by a commonly known Spanish loan, or outright translated into native equivalents. These are summarized in the table. An example of a word retained in English is komsa, prosecutor, which is prosecutor as well in our translation. An example of a word substituted for a Spanish loan was chingin, witness, which we translated as testigo. An example of a word translated into the native equivalent was pobon, court, reflected as hukuman. Filipino legal terms coined by the translators are listed in the table below. An example is inflicting bodily injury, which was translated into pamiminsala sa katawan. Another is injury resulting from violence, translated into pinsalang dulot ng karahasan. With regard to wordplay, in the drama, the protagonist Woo Young-Woo has a catchphrase made up of palindromes, ending in her own palindromic name, Woo Young-Woo. It is important to note that palindromes in Korean are words that read the same forwards and backwards by the syllable. This is in contrast to how palindromes are in English and Filipino, which are words that are spelled the same forwards and backwards. In the original, it goes Kirogi, Tomato, Suisu, Induin, Pyoltongbyol, Uyongwu. In the English subtitles, Kayak, Teed, Rotator, Noon, Race Car, Uyangwu. For the Filipino translation, the translators chose to preserve the palindromic wordplay as Alaala, Salas, Oso, Alila, Tapat, Uyangwu. Another example was when the character Choi Soo-yeon explained that the nickname for Young-woo in law school was Oilu, a shorthand way of saying Otsapi Ildungen Uyong-woo. In any case, Uyong-woo is in first place. The English subtitles translated this as FPA Woo, which itself is shorthand for first place again, Uyang-woo. In this case, however, the translators chose to translate this into Panawu, already a pun in itself on the word panalo, winner, at the same time being shorthand for panalo na naman si Uyang-woo, a reflection of Filipino culture's tendency to coin fun nicknames. To come up with this expression, the original meaning was first taken into account. There was a dilemma about using the literal translation or coining a new Filipinized phrase to make up for the creativity shown in both Korean and English subtitles, Oilu and FPAU respectively. In the end, the latter was chosen in order to preserve the wit exhibited by the wordplay as it was deemed necessary. Translation will always be a difficult task. When it comes to translating non English original works, English is still commonly used as a basis for secondary translations. It cannot be denied that the availability of non native English writers far exceeds those of other languages. However, the translators in this case used their background in Korean studies to have a translation made through a trilingual approach. Both Korean and Filipino culture place importance on politeness and one's title. As such, translating those aspects of the culture from Korean into Filipino was able to be done smoothly. However, there is some awkwardness when it comes to Filipino since English titles are actually more often used. There is a noticeable gap when it comes to translating legal terms into Filipino, whether from English or Korean. As it is, legal proceedings in the Philippines are mainly conducted through English. While borrowing is commonplace in any language, this also means that legal language in the Philippines is not accessible as it lies behind two barriers. A. Even native English speakers are not entirely familiar with legal terms, and B. English is not the language of the masses in the Philippines, despite its status as an official language. In order to preserve the nuance present in the material, translating directly from the source language is still the best practice. This is exemplified by the translation of Otsapi Ildengen Uyongu. In any case, Uyongu is in first place as Panawu. An exploration of direct translation from Korean to Filipino is recommended. That is all from us for today. Kamsahamnida. Thank you at maraming salamat po.